Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the business of efficiency, scaling smarter with StaaS. So my name is Priya and I'm the editor of Short-Term Rentals. And for those of you who may not know us, we are a B2B publication dedicated to the short-term rental industry, focused on creating original news, content and insights to support professionals across the sector. And today's webinar is in partnership with Extenteam. So here's a video from our sponsor today, from Extenteam. So further details and videos on our sponsors will be sent to your inboxes later on after the session, so please feel free to check that out. So moving on, we're going to run through some webinar guidelines. So today's session will be a 45-minute Q&A with our panelists. And if you have any questions for them, then please drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and I'll bring them up towards the end of the session. A recording will also be made available to everybody who is registered within 24 hours. So please do check that out and share it. And finally, a short survey will appear once the webinar ends. It only takes a few minutes, and we would really value your feedback. You'll also find links to more information about our sponsor and speakers in the chat box as well. So if you'd like to learn more about them after the session, please do check that out. So I just wanted to set the scene with a little bit of context about today's topic. So there's been a lot of news over the past year about staffing challenges across the hospitality sector. And we've seen ongoing waves of staffing issues, recruitment struggles, retention problems, and rising labour costs, having a real impact on how property managers are running the day-to-day operations. So in the short-term rental space, especially, teams are lean and guest expectations are high, and the balance between great service and profitability is getting harder to maintain, which is why we're seeing more property managers explore remote operational solutions. And today we'll be looking at that approach and staffing as a solution and how it's helping the short-term rental sector without the stress of constant hiring or burnout. So I'm going to ask each of our speakers to just introduce themselves from left to right, as we can see on screen for ease. So James, starting with you, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks, Priya. I'm James. I'm the CRO at Extenteam. So primarily working with our sales department, partner success and marketing to help sort of drive the revenue and protect the revenue that's coming in. Been with the company now for just over a year, 13 months. And thank you very much for inviting me in today to do the Q&A.
No problem. Thanks, James. And Nicholas, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Nicholas Falldine. I'm the head of product at Extenteam. I've been with the company for going on 2 years, getting pretty close to that. I'm looking forward to just diving into all the interesting topics we have today and any other questions that pop up, but just excited to be here.
Oh, thank you, Nicholas. And Chelsea, welcome.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm the reservations manager at Calton Living. So we are a small company, although we're growing quite quickly. I don't think we're that small anymore. I've been here for about 3 years, and we have locations in Edinburgh and London, looking to expand into other areas. So I've kind of seen growth from 28 apartments to now almost over 100. So yeah, been here for a little while.
Great. Well, I'm excited to kick things off with you all. So let's begin by kind of setting the scene a little bit. Staffing challenges have become a recurring issue, would you say, across the sector, and many property managers are kind of struggling to find sustainable solutions. So James, if we start with you, why has staffing become a pressing challenge in the industry today?
Yeah, I think quite importantly that, rising margins, costs of operating as a self-catering company or short-term rental companies become more challenging with the increased costs, whether it's commissions on OTAs, softwares, and also the staycation market sort of moving away to sort of being more of an international based market. So it's much more difficult. There's, the pressures on margins are harder. So of course, with that, staffing costs are quite hard to sustain. And we're trying to do more with less. even Extenteam, we're trying to optimize the way that we work, but it's being mindful of that as well, because obviously doing more with less has a shelf life, as you already mentioned, that can sort of turn into burnout or staff dissatisfaction. So obviously turnover being quite high. And I grew up in Dorchester in Dorset for quite a while, and the one big theme for me once you got to a certain age was to get out of Dorset and move away to sort of go to the dizzy heights of a city somewhere. So obviously the talent pool is sometimes quite challenging in certain markets in the UK or across Europe or even in the US. So those challenges are faced by the short-term rental market, self-catering industry, and obviously the demand from guests, with guest communication and service standards being really high, and you've got your reputation reviews you've got to manage as well. So it's really important to keep on top of these things, but it's sometimes very challenging and daunting to bring in and find the right talent. So yeah.
Definitely. Thanks, James. And Nicholas, just coming to you here, but anyone kind of new to the idea of remote staffing, can you explain a little bit about what we really mean by remote operational solutions and how this kind of differs from traditional call center or a generic VA platform?
Sure. Yeah. So I do think that there's like a big difference there. A lot of like, just to dive into like remote operational solutions, really what we're going to be able to do is find pre-vetted professionals that are specifically trained in the hospitality industry. This really means that we'll be able to help our customers go and find someone that has most likely worked on the PMS that they're currently using now. They know the terminology. They know exactly like how guests want to be interacted with if they are interacting with guests in their role. Because when we look at our industry specifically, we know that there's a lot of nuances. We know that, yeah, I mean, because it's a hospitality industry, there's a specific way that you have to approach kind of every single thing that you're doing. That mindset takes a while to be developed. So when going into it, just going and finding someone who works remotely can be daunting. But a lot of what we're doing is we're looking for long-term team members, not just like a call center that people are going to be pushed into and get like a very generic experience. This is something that's really catered and tailored specifically to exactly what our customers are needing.
Yeah, thank you. So it's really about that integration rather than outsourcing. So you kind of have that peace of mind when it comes to approaching your staffing, would you say?
Exactly.
Thank you. And Chelsea, just bringing you in here. So what were the kind of biggest challenges that you faced before integrating and working with Extenteam?
I think, as I kind of said, from me being here, when I joined the company, we were at 28 apartments, and now we're over 100. So, as you can imagine, handling guest communications, all the admin tasks, answering reviews, and trying to support our on-site team becomes increasingly more difficult, and it becomes increasingly harder to keep response times at an appropriate level, and just the consistency and our standard of communication with our guests. We were stretching thin after a while. And so we were kind of like, for the sake of our efficiency, our productivity, staff stress levels, we were like, we're going to have to make a change here.
Yeah, and was that kind of a matter of too many tasks, not enough hands, and kind of maintaining consistency across your guest comms as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. And what kind of gave you the confidence to start working with Extenteam? And how did that onboarding process kind of compare with hiring on your own?
Yeah, I mean, well, as everybody knows, when you hire on your own, you've got to do the adverts, you've got to write all the job profiles, you've got to do the interviews, it's a lengthy process that you have to do, and that takes a lot of time as well. And so my colleagues came across Extenteam at a conference, and we kind of sat down and said, okay, let's have a look at this. And honestly, the team were amazing. They sat down with us, said, okay, what's your need? Where are your gaps? What do you need help with? And then they went away and they did the heavy lifting for us, and then came back and said, okay, we think these guys are going to be good. What do you think? Let's interview kind of 3 together. And then from there we picked, and yeah, it was just the support was so easy. It was exactly what we needed. It was a lot smoother and a lot quicker than doing it ourselves.
Okay, and obviously guest communication can be a real driving force when it comes to repeat bookings and guest loyalty. So did you see changes in that aspect of your business and in bookings and operational performance after working with Extenteam?
Yeah, definitely. I think our response time improved and the communication felt a lot more consistent and very professional instead of someone kind of, oh, let me check your electricity while I respond to your parking inquiry. So it was kind of like everybody was juggling too much. And so having, people focused on certain things, it was consistent. People weren't feeling as stressed. And as you say, the feedback like relays back to direct business, and that's our driving force. And so we've definitely seen really good feedback and improvement from our guests after having the team on board. So yeah.
Definitely. And you mentioned stress levels as well. I can imagine that it would take a lot of stress off your leadership team and local staff. So did that really affect workload? And did you see a real improvement in kind of team morale, I guess, after kind of working with Extenteam then?
Yeah, definitely. It's taken a massive weight off. And I think as well, it's given our leadership team the ability to focus on their strengths and where they need to focus on instead of being like, oh, there's 50 guests for us to reply to. Let me put that deal on hold back here while I respond to all of our guests. So I think it's given definitely more clarity and amongst the team on kind of who does what. And the stress levels have definitely dropped. And then with Extenteam, our leadership are confident that we have the support that they can kind of look after our guests almost independently. They come to us if they need a bit of support or anything like that, but gives them a chance to look at strategy and future planning and vision. And then we have our dedicated team looking after our guests.
Yeah, so I guess it would really allocate that time for the guest experience as well and kind of focusing on that aspect of things as well. So Nicholas, just bringing you back in here from the kind of product side, what do you think that property managers value the most once they make that shift?
Yeah, I think once they make that shift, then really so getting into like the differences and like do like a generic platform, then kind of hiring into like StaaS. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of what I was saying earlier, then I think that there's just a different mindset when you're looking to find someone who's dedicated to your team, someone who is a long-term team member versus where you're just looking to plug somebody in and it's going to be kind of like rinse and repeat. So I think that's a huge difference in general. Once again, going back to someone who's going to have someone who's a hospitality trained talent, who's exactly what the business is needing. So really exactly like what they're looking for, as opposed to someone generic coming in. And then something that you had mentioned, which is very true about like having full integration into the operator's tools. So obviously so much of like what's going to help everything run smoothly at these, like at our customers' companies, is just making sure that anyone who's joining the team knows all the lingo, they know all the nuances about the industry, and then also all the tools that they're using, the PMSs, the maintenance tools, even things like Slack, or any other tools that they currently use, then that's something that they're going to get a huge difference with.
Nice. And Chelsea, just bring back to you here. Many kind of smaller property managers may choose to hire remotely because of that perceived complexity. So what was your experience? I know you mentioned it earlier, but what was the experience when you kind of found your first remote team member, and what was that like?
Yeah, I think for us, we obviously just needed more hands, but hiring like full time and locally wasn't the best option for us. So looking at remote and extend helped give us support that molded exactly to what we needed, and it's allowed us to kind of scale and relieve the pressure. Yeah.
Nice. And Nicholas, for smaller operators that might be hesitant to start, what would you say is the best kind of first step to building that remote team?
Is that one for me, Priya? or for
Great.
Nicholas?
Yeah, for either of you, jump
You,
in.
as I started talking, so I'll steal that from Nicholas. I think most importantly is focus on one specific role to start with. Um, what's giving you what's causing you the most pain? What's causing the most time that you could save? And I guess with like any hire, whether it's someone coming into the office or whether it's someone remotely, is having uh, documentation, SOPs, knowing the technology behind what's going to need to be supported within that role, nailed basically and documented. And that would be the same whether it would be remote or in-house locally, sort of boots on the ground. The other side, sort of clear any hesitancy, we've got Smart Recruit. Smart Recruit's the platform where it's a full transparency and being able to see the hires, see the pre-interviews that have been done, the ability to ask them questions, and then also if you should need to have a further interview with them directly, you can request that. But like with any sort of hiring, whether you do it yourself or remotely, you're not tied into long contracts at Extenteam. There is the ability to have a rolling contract should you need to, and should you need to replace somebody or increase their headcount for any reason, that's all part of the service at Extenteam. So giving as much flexibility to those who are wanting to sort of dip their toe into building a remote team is available to those who are starting out.
Nice. And you touched on flexibility there, but do you find that property managers, once they make their first remote hire, they tend to expand quite quickly, or how have you kind of observed that process?
Yeah, I think it's quite a blend. We've got some who are now at 9, 10, 11 sort of dedicated team members. So they've gone full steam. Others who are not looking to scale, those who needing to scale and grow will grow with us, meaning they'll increase the number of team members. So it does vary, but those expanding with us probably make up around 45% of our business. So it's something that a lot of property managers do globally. Once they start with one, they'll increase and look at other, not necessarily within the same department. They might look at bookkeeping, or they may look at marketing assistants or others that are more specific or specific within certain roles, more trained roles. But for sure, we definitely get a lot of clients expanding with us.
Nice, thank you, James. And Nicholas, could you just talk us through a little bit about the hybrid approach and kind of tailwind and the use of AI as well?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I'll mention there is around so for Tailwind, Tailwind is our guest communication product, where we have a team of hospitality trained agents, blended with some AI help, that's going to take care of all guest communication for our customers. So one thing that we see is obviously there are some AI only solutions in the marketplace today. So what makes Tailwind different is because of with it being a hybrid approach, and we do have, as I was saying, like humans in the loop who are handling majority of all of these guest communication queries. AI by itself is going to struggle still with things like empathy, and then also complex scenarios. And so what I mean by complex scenarios is like we're constantly evaluating to see when guests are messaging in, are they messaging in purely for like an FAQ, like they're just needing an answer to a question, or do they need something to actually be done? AI is good at answering FAQs, once again, assuming that it has the correct knowledge that it needs. But when it comes to those complex scenarios, like actually like doing a job, like having someone go out and fix a maintenance request, or actually processing like an early check-in, that's where it tends to fall over. Also, guests know, like whenever they're being talked to with AI, it's relatively clear, and guests really do want reassurance that a human's on the other side who's going to be able to help them no matter what they need. So yeah, so that's where we step in with Tailwind, which is like hybrid. It's going to blend like the efficiency of AI, but with actual hospitality trained agents. And that's what's going to ensure that guests are getting like accurate, empathetic responses. But still with what our operators need is that they're going to get that coverage around the clock. So yeah, that's kind of how we view guest communication and how it's different from a lot of other things in the market today.
Interesting. Thank you, Nicholas. And Chelsea, just coming to you here, how have you seen that play out in terms of your guest communications? Obviously, we touched on the AI element, kind of not being able to fully replace guest communications with humans, and how have you kind of seen that play out with the customers?
Yeah, I think for us, so we use Tailwind. We brought it on because we had a glaring gap in our communication from like 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., just a long time. And yet we could fill that with AI, just, let AI kind of run its course. But when guests have those more complex issues, just as an example, I can't get my keys out of the lockbox. It's kind of like, okay, well, are you at the right lockbox? Are you using the correct code? All of these things where the Tailwind uses that human interaction to be like, okay, I'm going to assist and I'm going to help you, where AI can't. And so we've definitely seen better guest satisfaction from that time using Tailwind. We have quite a complex model. We have, a number of different buildings across different cities, and Tailwind have picked that up tremendously well. And the guest satisfaction for us has made a real difference to take care of our guests around the clock. Yeah.
It's kind of enabled you to reach out to guests in those times where you wouldn't be pushing out comms with your guests. So it's kind of enabled that on-running communication, which I guess is, would you say, enhanced your guest relationships as
Yeah,
well?
definitely, because we felt like, although we had, on-site assistance till 9 p.m., someone's flight might arrive at 9 p.m. and therefore they're not getting to the building until 9:30, and then they arrive and then they have some issues. And it's like, oh, our office opens at 9 a.m. And you're just like, we can't have that. So it's definitely improved making sure that we have that coverage for our guests. And they're never left waiting. They always have an answer and somebody on hand able to help, which is amazing.
Nice. And with James, just coming back to you here, from a revenue perspective as well, I suppose, would you suggest that the AI kind of element and using that to boost your efficiency and free up time as well, and automation is a key thing here as well for operators?
Yeah, I think it's something that's important that all businesses adopt, and certainly in our industry, we've certainly seen an improvement in response times. We will use AI with the products we're talking about today for the agents to find answers quicker to certain things, because naturally, when you've got policies and rules for, in Chelsea's example of 100 properties, and you want to find the extra guest fee for a particular apartment in a particular building, you want to be able to access the knowledge base that we create for each of our partners super quick. So Nicholas and his team has built an AI tool called X10, which enables the agents to quickly find the answers to be able to respond to the guests. So I think, whilst AI is a very overused word recently, and it's certainly occupying all verticals of industry, for sure, we've used AI just to run more efficiently ourselves, and I think most companies are now adopting AI in some form or another, internally or externally with guests.
And would you kind of say that the use of AI as well, Chelsea, has kind of helped you kind of give more time to guest comms, but also kind of speed up your efficiency on a broader scale as well? So in terms of guest reviews and repeat bookings too?
Yeah, definitely. I think AI is extremely clever, and I think the more we feed it with knowledge, and we have a set standard here on, okay, let's use these types of prompts because we want our communication to be consistent, and our team have been able to work with that, which has saved so much time and has enabled our team to have the availability to answer through AI when someone is looking for parking, and then kind of give a more personalized response when they want dinner, because we have that availability to not, and as a human you can't answer 100 questions in a minute, But with AI, we kind of prioritize, okay, which ones can that answer and where can our team step in and support, which has been amazing.
Nice. And Nicholas, you touched on as well how we're seeing AI kind of expand so much in the hospitality sector in just recent times. So you mentioned the AI bots kind of being hospitality trained and kind of giving that more personalized touch and experience that we might not have seen from an AI guest bot, say, a few years ago. So what advice would you, or how would you respond to somebody kind of asking how a remote team member can really understand their business, and for anybody who might be hesitant to leaning into it?
Well, and just to clarify the question, so is the question around how like a company, should approach using AI in their guest communications?
Yeah, so how would you react to somebody maybe unsure about leaning into AI to kind of help facilitate their guest comms?
Got it. Yeah, I think that maybe a keyword there is like facilitate the guest comms, or like, it's facilitating as opposed to just completely taking over it. So James had mentioned, the way that we're looking at it is like there's a term called human in the loop, to where as opposed to just kind of letting AI run wild and letting it actually communicate back and forth with your guests and then like determine how it wants to drive the conversation. There are so many other really creative and useful ways of using AI, of like by being really kind of like a really strong tool in the tool belt for a human who's actually still responding to the guests. Writing a response to a guest does not take very long. It's really knowing the correct answer, like kind of like something that James had said about like, with Chelsea's like 100 properties, how do they find the information that they need in the quickest way? And then be able to then use that in a response back to the guests to let them know where to find the keys, if they are locked out or something of that nature. So I would really say for anyone who's looking at layering AI into their guest communication processes, is really don't think about it in the sense of that there's only one option, which is just handing the conversations completely over to AI. It's really still about like, how do you just make sure that you're going to be giving like a 5-star experience to guests, and then determine how much you really want to be relying on AI, whether it's like actually sending responses to guests, or if it's just really giving you, as I said, like that really strong tool, if it's blended into the product where it can just help you, do all those types of responses on your own still.
Thank you, Nicholas. And James, just coming to you here, when we think about kind of just flipping gears slightly here, when we think about kind of operators being hesitant to work with AI bots, it also kind of makes us think about hesitancy on working with remote team members and kind of losing that touch and that personal touch with their team. So how would you respond to a property manager maybe asking how a remote team member can really understand their business?
Yeah, I think, again, mentioned earlier on is trying to identify one sort of repetitive pain point. For example, guest communications or some other admin tasks that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and start with a pilot to test the impact of working with a remote team member to help with this pain point. And then, as we've seen from customers that we're working with, is build that confidence with a remote team member, and then increase the number of team members should you decide that it works for you and it can grow with you as you scale your business. I think probably that's the key. And again, sort of from a flexibility standpoint, you're not, certainly with Extenteam, you're not tied into any contractual terms. It's quite fluid in your ability to really to test the water, give it a go, and sort of try that step into moving some of your tasks remotely. But the key thing is that even with remotely, they are part of your organization. I think and the more that you invest in them, that the better that the team member will perform. It's whilst they may not be near to your local office. It's them feeling like they're part of your organization. And the more, like with anything, the more you put into it, the more you can get out of the individual and that inclusion as they are part of your team. So yeah.
Nice. And just on that that topic as well, what advice would you give to property manager maybe on helping ensure that those remote staff feel aligned with the company culture and values?
Yeah, I think the key thing with any employee, whether it be remote or in-house, is the onboarding experience. Now, of course, we offer a full wraparound service, so we have HR teams who look after the individuals as well as your own. So I think inclusion in team meetings, inclusions in whatever communication channels you use internally, and just, you know, whilst we will find hospitality trained staff, as we've heard a few, you know, throughout the whole presentation today, ultimately they are individuals. They are an extension to your team, to use the pun, but ultimately full inclusion, helping them to onboard and understand your business. Every property management business is different. They'll have different rules and policies, cultures, and trying to be immersed in that as much as they can is super key.
Thank you, James. And just having a look here, we've got a couple of questions coming in from the audience. So I'll probably throw this one out to yourself, James and Nicholas. So we've got someone asking, how long is the onboarding time period itself, and is there a staged time process?
Yeah, so I can take some of this and then feel free to add Nicholas. So obviously we talked about two products here, our Tailwind product and our dedicated team member, which is someone who's going to be solely working for your property management company. So for the dedicated team member, it's 2 weeks from start to finish, from initial conversations, building the job description, us doing the initial interviewing, you then sort of meeting them and selecting your candidate. Our SLA, or our normal time frame, is 2 weeks. That's for dedicated team member. And then of course, when they join, the onboarding experience and the training of them, understanding the way that you work, is something that is tracked between the partner and the dedicated team. Of course, we're heavily involved in that. But from an onboarding perspective, having a new hire as a team member, 2 weeks. From our Tailwind, we have been as quick as 3-4 days, but ideally would give a week, because the key thing to onboarding a new property manager for Tailwind is making sure that we have all of the rules and the policies. And imagine that could be quite extensive, because we're ultimately answering all types of guest inquiries, from early check-in, late checkouts, amending a booking, cancellation, refunds, pet policies. The list can go on and on and on as to the amount of knowledge that we need to build in our knowledge base. So I'll prefer to sort of say a week onboarding for Tailwind and 2 weeks for dedicated team members.
So, thank you, James. I'm not sure if there's anything there that you wanted to add to, Nicholas.
Yeah, on the Tailwind side, something that James had mentioned is like building out the knowledge base for a customer. So when we think about guest communication, there are so many different things that guests are messaging in about. Now, a lot of times it's going to fall within kind of like what we call like the happy path. Like they're going to ask the same questions around some like booking questions, check-in questions, where do I find towels, etc. But we also know, just through our analysis of like when those conversations tend to go a little bit, when they tend to deviate away from that happy path. So where we're spending a lot of our time right now within developing our product is not only making sure that we can respond to the guest properly, but it's actually building products specifically that help our customers. So property managers build out a very comprehensive knowledge base. So prompting them with questions about, these things that guests are going to message in about eventually. So helping them start thinking about the best way of compiling the most accurate and comprehensive data that they can, because at the end of the day, that is like the game that we're in when it comes to responding to guests, is that we have to have all that accurate data. And so therefore, we're spending our time building products that are helping our customers, the property managers, build out that data set within our platform. So yeah, I think that that's something that will not only expedite the onboarding process, but also make sure, like, ongoing, that at the very beginning, that we have as much knowledge as possible, and we're not having to go back and fill out more information, over time.
Thank you, Nicholas. And Chelsea, I don't know if you wanted to add anything there on what the experiences were like for you, onboarding wise.
I think for me, onboarding was great. For us, onboarding was super simple. It was quick. It was efficient. I think even, I had a team member start and I was like, oh, if you can, complete some GDPR training. And she's like, oh, we did this with Extent. And I'm like, oh, even better. So the team definitely comes ready to go. With Tailwind, I think, as I mentioned, we've got quite a complex model, lots of different apartments. That means, there's 90 ways of heating. There's 90 lockbox codes. And I think for us with Tailwind, it's very easy to update the team as you go. So for us, say we've decided to change the codes this week, we just jump on and we can quickly do that. Or if we find we're getting a question asked a lot of us in the day, I can pop on and say, I'm going to answer this for Tailwind, so that they have this information at night. So it's very easy to keep up to date and ongoing knowledge as accurate as we can as well. Because obviously we want to give the team the knowledge to be able to support our guests. So it kind of goes both ways, and I find that really easy. If there's been a slight change, or maybe lockbox is an easy thing, we all deal with them, but maybe the lockbox has moved slightly, or something that's very easy to update as you go.
Thank you, Chelsea. And we've just got another audience question in here. So James, might throw this out to you to begin with. So somebody's asking, how can I implement cost controls while monitoring growth of services for a better guest experience?
Oh, okay. Good question. I think ultimately trying to break down costs per property or per unit is probably the first starting point. Looking at each unit that you're advertising or that can be sold, whether it's an apartment or a house, breaking down those costs. And if you're looking at an Extenteam as a cost, for Tailwind, we cost that differently. That's on a price per property per month, so you can easily allocate that cost to each of the units. From a dedicated team member's perspective, it's as most of us on the call, we would love to work a 40-hour week, but let's pretend that we all do, that we're on a 40-hour week, and then you're allocating that to the number of units that they're, or particularly the role that they're doing. If it's guest services, a bit easier. If something more complex, a bit more hard to do. But breaking down those costs, looking at guest reviews before starting with Extenteam, and then sort of monitoring if how those guest reviews increase, and looking at repeat business on the units that you've acquired that cost to, would be a start. But ultimately, yes, it's keeping a tight control on costs, but naturally you want to be then measuring, well, is this investment that I'm putting into my remote team to help me with guest communication, is that giving me back a return on investment and giving me client satisfaction? So I think breaking that cost down per unit would be a start, and then sort of looking at the gauge of guest review improvements over time, repeat business on those units, and potentially looking at other areas of maybe reservations that are where the team have been involved in to help them close, because naturally we live in a multi-time zoned world in the hospitality industry, and that inquiry coming in for potential booking at 3 a.m. in the morning from the US perhaps wouldn't have got answered till 9 o'clock in the morning without Tailwind, that potentially the involvement of Tailwind could help push that over the line. So certainly allocating the cost of a product like the Extenteam based per unit, and then looking at reviews, repeat business, and revenue per unit could be a good way of starting.
Thank you, James. And just kind of on that, you mentioned as well about the control element of things. So I'm interested as well, and how would you kind of suggest that property managers can kind of stay in control if someone else is kind of handling their guest comms? Nicholas, I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, so for someone to stay in control, so something that I think that Chelsea had mentioned is that within the Tailwind product is that everything is because we have a platform built for our customers to come in and change anything they need to change at any time, and those changes take into effect immediately. That's one way. So yeah, let's say that something changes at the property or even changes at the company. Maybe it's like, hey, we're no longer offering early check-ins. You can go in and you can change that and apply that to all of your properties. So I think that definitely makes sure that people can stay in control of their operations. Then when it comes to, you know, at the end of the day, there, you know, people are. We also were going to need to know how to reach out to different contacts from our customers' companies. So let's say that someone's on vacation for that week. So once again, being able to go into our platform, being able to actually update the contacts and update the schedules that they are working, that's also something that helps keep people in control, even if somebody else is handling their guest communication for them. Also, we do provide almost kind of like levers of how much do they want for us to actually handle for them? Like, do they want us to handle relocation of guests, taking payments, giving discounts, things of that nature? So once again, over time, of course, we want to earn our customers' trust. We really want to be able to show exactly what it is that we're really good at, and then grow with them. But once again, that's completely up to our customers of what they want for us to handle, and that's all controllable through our platform. So you're not having to wait until someone replies to an email to say, okay, no problem, like we will change the way we're doing things for you. Our customers are fully in control.
Very interesting. Thank you, Nicholas. Sorry, I don't know if you. Oh, sorry, I thought James, you were about to say something. That's fine. So I just wanted to round off our discussion with a bit of closing advice as well. So Chelsea, coming back to you, for those in the audience that might be unsure if remote support is right for them, what kind of advice would you give? And is there anything that you wish you had known before you kind of embarked on that journey?
Yeah, I think I'd say kind of don't overcomplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're stretched and you're struggling and you need the support, particularly with guest communications and guest satisfaction, it's been worth it for us. So I think it would be worth exploring for anyone. And although it's daunting to kind of pass basically the driving force of your business, your guests, to someone, it's not as daunting as it sounds. And we started off really small. We started off with one person, and we were like, okay, we can do this. And we've added on, and then we've added Tailwind. And so I think what I wish I knew a bit sooner was that this was possible. Because we, before, we're handling all of our hires direct, and it gets a lot when you're trying to make sure you've got the right person and all the hiring and interviews and going through all the resumes that come in. It takes a long time. So it's really helpful that you have someone who can sit down with you and say, okay, what are your pain points? And then they meet that. So we've definitely seen a huge benefit to our team and our company. And so, yeah, I would just say, don't overthink it and start small.
Good. Thank you, Charles. Some nice advice there. And Jane, just coming to you again, what's one piece of advice that you would give property managers who might be curious about remote staffing but don't know where to start?
Reach out and let's have a chat. I think we've sort of covered quite a lot today, and thank you, Chelsea, for sort of giving a great synopsis. I think ultimately, reach out and we can just have a conversation and talk more about it and add some more context on today's Q&A. We're not hard salespeople at Extenteam. Ultimately, it's got to be something that's right for each business, and we speak to a lot of businesses sort of weekly. So please feel free to reach out and have a conversation. Would be my advice.
Perfect. And Nicholas, anything in there that you'd want to add in terms of advice to property managers?
Yeah, I would say that guest communication, obviously, with is one of the most key parts of repeat business, of 5-star reviews. So yeah, just I think that there's a lot of solutions in the marketplace, but definitely, as James said, like reach out, take a look at how we're doing things differently. We put a lot of thought and care into how we've blended, or how we've created a hybrid approach with AI efficiency, but still keeping humans very much so front and center, for the guests to have what it is that they expect and what they want. So yeah, I would just say reach out, have a demo, see how things are done. And yeah, things are also rapidly changing with us as we grow the product, week over week. So if you've taken a look in the past, then maybe come back and take another look, because things are always getting better.
Exciting times ahead then. So I think that's a good note to round up on, and kind of powered through those questions today. So thank you again, Chelsea, James and Nicholas, for participating in our panel today. And again, further information on Extenteam can be found in the links in the chat box below. So please do check that out. So like I said, just want to say a big thank you again to our sponsor Extenteam and to our speakers. I've just got a few rounding up slides from myself before we wrap up. So we have an upcoming webinar on the 28th of October, all on automating your stay without sacrificing quality. So please do sign up if of interest. And tickets for our short-term rental summit on the 5th of November are live, so please do grab a ticket. You won't want to miss out on the event, and we've got an exciting lineup of sessions in store for you. And if you are interested in working with us, then reach out to our head of growth, whose contact details are on screen and in the chat box. And thank you. I hope you've gained some valuable insights today on how remote staffing can really help scale your short-term rental business, and boost efficiency. So just one big thank you again to our panelists and to Extenteam, and please enjoy this closing video from the IHM team.
At IHM, we believe in the power of connection. We exist to inspire, to inform, and to unite decision makers who are shaping the future of hospitality and real estate. Our why is simple. We believe this industry thrives when people and ideas come together. And we're here to make that happen. So how do we do it? We challenge the status quo by creating platforms that go beyond the expected. We blend intelligent content, curated events, and a strong community into everything we do. Making it easy, accessible, and genuinely useful. From online engagement to face-to-face connection, we are known for being insightful, collaborative, and refreshingly human. We publish 4 leading multimedia brands, each a trusted voice in its sector, delivering breaking news, bold opinions, and fresh trends. We host world-class events, panel discussions, podcasts, award ceremonies, and webinars, designed to spark ideas, drive conversation, and create impact. With over 62,000 monthly web visitors, 55,000 email subscribers, and 69,000 social media connections. Our reach is deep and our community is active. We're partnered with the biggest names in hospitality, and we'd love to connect with you. So whether you're looking to grow your visibility, meet the right people, or understand where the market's heading, read, watch, listen, and me. Do it all with IHM.